Welcome to the Queens on Decks, where I interview female DJs from around the world. I am Michelle Miller, your host of the Royal Queens Rising podcast. We share our inspiring stories and secrets to our success. Hi, welcome to the Royal Queens Rising podcast. I'm your host, DJ RunDat, and today I have DJ Keelez. Hi.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah. So excited to connect with you. I just love you. I love your energy. I interviewed you so long ago, like years ago. So it's really awesome to have you back and get to hear about what's been going on, because I know there's been a lot of growth, a lot of change, and some amazing things going on in the last year and a half. I've been watching you. I love seeing everything you're up to. You're really killing it with virtual events. We've been sharing the QSC stage together virtually and all kinds of cool stuff. So let's just start out by, telling us a little bit about who you are and how you got into the DJ business.
Absolutely. Yes. So I'm DJ Keelez. Thank you, first of all, RunDat, for having me on your show. Always a pleasure. But I'm DJ Keelez. I'm from Los Angeles. I specialize in super fun, high energy weddings, private events, corporate functions, and now virtual events. I'm also an LGBTQ and multicultural wedding expert. And I've been in the business I stopped counting at 10 years, but over 10 years now at this point.
Right. I know. I forget. I'm like 12 years, 11, 13.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm 10 plus. That's just where I leave it right now. So
yeah. Well, it's really cool because in LA, you have so much, so many different varieties and cultures and different types of people. I mean, like, I'm in a little sheltered world, I would say, here in Humboldt County. We don't have a lot of different ethnicities or cultures. Like, we are just our own in a way. We are our own, like, cannabis redneck hippie country, so I'm in my own zone. So it's fascinating to tap into people like you who get to DJ all those different types of events. Like, to me, it's really exciting when I get an event like I've never done that one before. It's like, yay, variety. Variety is the spice of life.
Right. Yeah. No, it keeps you on your toes. Definitely. I mean, you never really know what kind of wedding is going to come your way in Los Angeles. And then the thing with LA too, it could be a celebrity. It could be your average backyard wedding. It could be super, middle-class standard. It could be extremely luxury. Like, you really never know where you're going to be. I mean, there is, something to say in terms of price point. I mean, once you set your price, you do kind of have a better idea in terms of where you're going to go. But there are certain price points in LA that could get you a little bit of everywhere. And I'm kind of at that price point where you really you can end up a little bit of everywhere. You can end up at a super luxury wedding, or somebody who's throwing a backyard party but wants an amazing DJ still kind of like splurges. And like, they're like, you cost more than my whole wedding, but come on back. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting, LA, but it's great. I mean, it keeps you on your toes. And I've got to say that I've learned so much when it comes to just the culture behind wedding, which is why I've, dove into the multicultural wedding, expertise part of it, because I realized after doing this for so long, I'm like, I know so much more than I feel like the average person knows about culture and weddings, because here we have a bunch of different cultures. There's a lot of Asian culture, different subsects of Asian, you have different subsects of Latin, you have, African American, you have Caucasians, you have a little bit of everything. And then they're marrying each other too. So you're combining both of those cultures into your wedding. And sometimes you have, people from two different Asian cultures too getting married. So now you have to figure out, the Korean part of it versus the Chinese part of it, or the Philippines. So it's very interesting, but I've learned so many different things and how certain cultures will do certain formalities. Like the money dance is a great example. You know what I mean? Some people are like, absolutely not, I don't want to do the money dance. But when it comes to like Filipino weddings, they're like, I saw them once where they fashioned a ball and chain out of like $20 bills, and it was all just money, and they strapped it to the groom, and it was just amazing. But that was that wedding, and so I've learned to really just embrace that and understand, and also educate myself. And if I come across a wedding that I maybe have not done before, letting the client know, hey, I've never really experienced it before, please let me know so that I can do this again. Like, I would love the education so that when I come across this, I can really hit it from home. And a lot of clients appreciate that, and they're thrilled to almost kind of educate you. I mean, they don't want to give you crazy amounts of, they don't want to like stress themselves out, but they're okay if you tell them, hey, I don't really understand that, but I want to. A lot of them kind of love giving you that education. So it's super fun. Definitely keeps you on your toes though, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And my best friend's Filipino, and I've gotten to do their holiday Christmas party, a big event in Humboldt County where all they have a whole, the whole gang, a whole like association, and I've gotten to do some 80s parties for them. And they know how to party. They love to sing, they love to perform, they love to get on stage. They're so much fun.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing too. It's like and it's also, it makes you a better DJ to be able to mix in, different kinds of music. Like sometimes you have Persian weddings and they want you to mix in Persian music with, American music. And you have to, if you want it to sound good, you have to figure out a way to mix it in. And I've discovered, like, you think when you're not necessarily educated on terms of certain types of music, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to mix this kind, like, what does Persian music even tell? And then you hear it and you realize, wow, there's a lot of similarities in like the music structure. And depending on the kind of, like, if you're looking at the pop music, Persian music versus like the slower Persian music. But either way, there's similarities in how they're structured and how they sound, and you really can mix them together. But it makes you a better DJ in the end of it. And like, Indian music and stuff like that is really cool to mix with hip hop, Bhangra and Bollywood music and all that stuff is amazing. And I've learned, it's made me a better DJ, to simply put it, just to learn all these different music and cultures and be able to put it on a dance floor in addition to the formalities is just super cool. And one of the things I really love about Los Angeles, I mean, I'm not knocking the Bay Area or Humboldt County. I used to live there for a while. I love it, but I definitely get it in terms of that. You
Yeah.
don't, everybody's in hoodies and coats all the time, so you don't really know what they look like anyway. So it's like a whole thing because it's so cold over there.
That's funny. Yeah. So when I used to do the festival circuit with my clothing line, there was this Indian food booth that I absolutely loved. And I think they were from the Bay Area. And I would go and I would order my food and I would Shazam all the music that they were
Right.
playing because
It's
it's
great.
so fun.
It's amazing. And I mean, and the cool thing about Indian weddings too is that traditionally you're used to seeing more women dancing than men, right? Normally the guys are on the corner and they're just kind of like slowly moving, or they're dancing with a girl. They or a guy actually, hey, it's so and I do all sorts of weddings too. So I see all different combinations of people dancing together, and I'm all here for it. But with that being said, with Indian weddings, you see a lot more men on the dance floor. So they would literally just get there and go crazy. So it's really interesting to see that when you're not normally seeing the men be the ones that like lead it, and they're like grabbing people's hands and just really going for it. So that's I think the really cool part about that.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of this time I was watching this Indian movie with a friend. I don't remember what it was, but we were watching it and like halfway through it, we realized we had the TV setting on black and white. Cause when I think of Indian movies, or like, I just think of a lot of bright, beautiful colors. And we were
Hollywood, right?
watching it and like halfway through, we're like, the something ain't right. Like, why is this black and white? It was like a setting in the TV. But yeah, that is so fun. So curious because that like just those you were speaking of, like a Persian wedding, Indian wedding, like Filipino wedding, like that's a lot of different styles of music. And I know a lot of DJs rely on record pools for their music. So is there a record pool you use for that? Or are you going and buying on iTunes?
So honestly, it's old-fashioned research. I mean, you can't, I mean, some record pools, Latin music, a lot of them will have Latin music on their record pools. Some of them will have Bollywood music and stuff like that. So you might be able to get lucky. But to be honest with you, yeah, when it comes to the really cultured weddings, what I do is I will honestly, I search it from scratch. I do the research. I say, let me see what's on their equivalent of the Billboard music charts, every client wants something different. So some people want newer music versus older. And so I kind of say, well, give me an example of XYZ. So they give me an example. And then so from there, I will normally go and search similar artists in genres. And then I just start my search from that. And so I build from that. So I listen to one and another and another. And then, I mean, it's not the cheapest way because I'm individually buying all these songs, but it's worth it because you'll use the songs again. I mean, I'm a big believer. I probably showed this before. You got to spend money to make money. If you want a really great business, you have to be willing to make those sacrifices and spend. And even if you never use a song again, it's worth every penny, every dollar that you spend. But yeah, starting from scratch, build it. And then also, you build those playlists for other events. So now you have this one wedding and you never know when it's going to come again that, oh, hey, look, I have that playlist from that wedding. So I can totally pull from that. But yeah, it's definitely starting from scratch. It's researching, it's listening to the music. It's, it's being able to DJ and beat match and understanding, how to create your own intros or to be creative with your intros. If the song, just doesn't do it, it's being able to, so it's a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of work, but it's worth it. And it's fun. And the more you do it, I think the easier it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was thinking about like the amount of time and energy we put into our events and our weddings in particular. Something I've asked my clients before we talk about pricing is what genres they want. And I don't know what other DJs will think about this, but like if it's a genre that I don't have a lot of, like if it's a 10-hour country wedding, like I'm gonna not settle. I'm gonna make sure I'm getting paid all my time that's going into the
Yeah, I
set
mean,
for
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, and that's what I try to tell people is you really have to make sure that you're charging accordingly because of the work you put in. So yes, some weddings might be easier than the other, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're putting in work for all of these weddings. So you definitely want to pay for it. I mean, yeah, and that's why it's important to meet with clients and understand what their expectations are and also informing your client too. And that's why I said, if you come across something that you don't necessarily understand the music, sometimes you have to tell the client, like, listen, I need you to help me with this. I need you to send me some examples. So you're going to have to do a little work here. I'll make it happen, but we're going to have to meet in the middle. So do bare minimum work and then I'll do the chunk of it. But sometimes you do have to kind of say, hey, listen, I know you're paying me a lot of money, but in order to make this work, I need your help, and there's nothing wrong with that. And a lot of times clients kind of understand. I mean, people understand if you're not of that culture. I think they kind of understand, you know what I mean? Even before I did any Jewish weddings, like I didn't know what a chair dance was, the horror, or anything like that. I was like, I had to have a client explain it to me. Now I'm a pro. I'm like, everybody grab your hand, come on to the left and right. It's like the whole thing. But it takes a minute to learn it. But that's this career and what makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, like, you're not afraid to be honest with the client and be like, hey, I need a little help from you. you
Yeah,
know?
you have to. Well, I mean, I've learned that you have to ask for it because if you try on your own, you don't know what the client wants. And I've had personally clients who have no problem telling me that what I did wasn't what they wanted, right? So, like, let's say I did a custom mix, or like it was a first dance, and I've had very vocal brides who were like, "Yeah, no, that's not where I wanted it cut right here. This is where I wanted. I needed it." And then they're like, "Wow, okay." So they caught that. They knew a little more than I knew, and clients like that made me realize that sometimes you have to ask those questions so that you get it exactly, because those particular clients will come back at you and say, that's not what I wanted. And I'm very keen on actually verifying stuff with clients beforehand. So I'm not going to show up to a ceremony and play a song that I did not send to the client and say, listen to this version and verify this is the version you want, because I don't want to play this Rascal Flatts song that you actually wanted the acoustic version versus the radio version. And so now it's a lot faster than you thought. And, just because you put the song title and artist, but you forgot to add acoustic in parentheses, I mean, it makes a huge difference. So you definitely, it's important to verify all across the board.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And those special details are really important. Like those special songs that I'll admit I made that mistake years ago. One of the first weddings I did, I was helping my husband. He let me do a wedding with him and they were our friends and I played the wrong version.
Yeah, it happens.
And they had paid somebody to teach them how to dance together and
The
put this
choreographed ones are the worst. That'll crush your soul. Yeah.
I learned the hard way on that one and I felt so bad and oh god, but sometimes you got to learn the hard way. So yeah, I know now. And something that helps me is I have the custom app where they can go preview the songs on YouTube or Spotify and plug them into their first dance, their, processional, all the special songs, and so we can double check that way.
That's important. Yeah. And that's a very key point, that is to double check if your client is choreographing that first dance, because you can single-handedly ruin something that they've worked on for years. They could be practicing this for years and you don't understand that what they're practicing involves a count and a particular beat. And if that song is not the right count or the right, you've totally ruined them, and they're going to stop and they're going to instantly look at you and you're going to die inside. Just it's exactly what it is. So yeah, always verify. Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious. So this is something I'm learning to do, is to actually meet with the clients. I have had gigs where I never even met them. I didn't know what they were going to look like. And it's kind of just my area. Most of my weddings, I'm driving an hour there. A lot of them are from out of town. So this is something I've learned over the past few years. It is really important. And I'm, wanting to build a closer relationship with my clients, get to know them more, them get to know me, make sure all those details, like the client relationship is definitely a priority for me now, where I didn't even think about that really when I first started doing weddings.
Right. Yeah, no, you have to. I mean, I'll be honest, I've always met with my clients. I like to at least have one meeting beforehand, and I typically would do a venue viewing. I don't like to go blind. I'm crazy though. I'll drive to San Diego and back as a matter of fact, I'm supposed to go on Thursday to Palm Springs and back for venue viewing, just because I would rather do it to be comfortable than not. I'm also, it could be my OCD. I don't know. I'll admit I'm a little crazy, But I think it makes, I mean, if you want to be a business that charges a higher price point, you have to be willing to do those things that other people aren't. And I've done weddings where I never meet the client, and honestly, it's the rapport is not there. You're not going to get tipped as well. I'll tell you right now, if you build that rapport beforehand, if you're, I mean, not that tips are important, not to say that, listen, my doing a good job for a client is never correlated to a tip. I am going to give you the same quality of work regardless. But if you are going to get a tip, the chances will be higher if you have that rapport, if the client trusts you, if you've already told that client, we're going to rock your wedding, don't you worry, I will be there. They're going to appreciate you. And then if you execute and you go above and beyond, I mean, that's, what is really matter. And I've worked with people to where they don't even know what a tip is. They're like, oh, what is that? What are you getting right now? Like, what is that? And they have no idea because they've never necessarily experienced that or received one. But it's, it's really because some people don't go above and beyond. Some people don't want to meet with them. They don't want to be bothered. But it's important. It matters. I mean, even if it's not even for just doing a good job, for that little extra bit.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Moving forward, I'm all about it. And I did a site visit last week, and thankfully I did that because they did not tell me I needed all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive.
That's
And
it.
I was in my minivan. It's a V6. I could shift down to, first gear, second gear, which is what I do on hills. But it was a dirt road that was freshly graded, and it was steep, and I didn't punch it enough to make it up that hill. I did not make it up that hill.
Oh,
I
wow.
had to reverse down. Thankfully, I have a backup camera, which makes me feel a little more safe. And I had to call them and say, I didn't make it. You got to come get me. So
Yeah.
now I know to borrow my husband's car or truck and make it up that hill.
That's
So
it.
super important. And every wedding is so unique. Every gig is so unique. So I'm learning just to ask a lot of questions. And sometimes I feel like I'm being a little annoying, but like, that's just a story in my head. It's like, no, this is my job. The more prepared you are, the less stress you will have, the better you will be able to perform, the more relaxed you can be. Because honestly, I have my first wedding this weekend and I've got nerves and, like I'm just preparing as much as I could prepare.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's all you can do. And I mean, you would never hurt to be safe. You're never hurt to know what you're going into. And just like you said, the key to that is understanding that clients don't know what makes a DJ's job difficult, right? So that client didn't even think about you having to drive up the hill because they drive up that hill no problem. So they thought you're going to be able to drive just as easy. Same when you're setting up in a backyard and they just go with the slider door and they walk in the backyard. Yeah, it's easy, but they don't realize what involves you walking through a house is there's lips to get into each and every little corner. They might have vases or expensive stuff that you don't want to break. And I'll be honest, I've been guilty of breaking one or two things just trying to go through people's houses to the point where I say, listen, first of all, you can't hold me responsible for that because I'm warning you in advance. I have a lot of stuff that, I cannot control that. If I hit a bump a wrong way or something, it might tip over. So I do the best I can to avoid that. But don't have me going into a glass house is my best recommendation. Figure out a way around that. Tell me what the side of your house looks like. And is the side of your house, is there a pathway or is it just like rocks? Is this a realistic place for me to push it through? Because if not, then I have to charge accordingly that I have to single-handedly carry each individual item back there. Second floor is a great example. They want you on a balcony. It's amazing. It's going to be great. But what happens when you're on the balcony and there's no power outlet and now you got to run 100 feet worth of cable somewhere else just because they thought it was going to look super cool that you were in this balcony that, mind you, had no elevator and 3 flights of stairs to get up to. These are the questions you ask so that you charge accordingly, or you break it to the client and say, listen, and I have no problem if it involves stairs. I first of all will charge a stair fee. Second of all, I will tell the client, let me tell you what that entails of me going up there, setting it up, bringing it down. And honestly, does that sound fun to you? Like, is all of that worth it to you? The chance that the wedding might run late, like if it doesn't all go perfect, you know what I mean? How does it, is it really? And sometimes the client will be understanding and they'll be like, yeah, no, I totally get it. I don't want you to go through that. Stay down there. And you also have to explain, like, do you want me to interact with your clients? I mean, do you like to with your guests? Do you want me to interact, request wise? How do you want your guests to feel? Because when I'm on a balcony, I'm really just like this like godly Messiah, Jesus hand kind of pose figure where that's really all they're going to see from me. And they're not going to be able to like, granted, some teachers will say, well, I don't want them to talk to me. But honestly, sometimes if you're losing your crowd, you need them to come and request. And you're like, oh, wait, this is what you want. Who go figure. They're a country crowd. I guess achy breaky hearts where we're going right now. And then you fill your dance floor. I've had plenty of times like that. So
Yeah.
bottom line is Always ask. There's no question I don't think it's too small, and there's no question too light, and there's no such thing as dumb questions. And you just tell your client, even if you ask them 4 or 5 times, I'm asking you this because I want to know. Sometimes in a meeting, I will ask the client 3 or 4 times, wait, tell me this again. What was that person's name? What's their relation? Wait, who's who? Because on the day of the event, I don't want to mess it up. So I'd rather mess it up during our meeting than live, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And then it gets into also like learning how to pronounce their names.
That's That's it. And then nowadays, learning to pronounce names. And also, I would tell everybody, if you're not figuring out what people's pronouns are, hop on that train, because you are going to be real rudely awakened the day that you decide to gender somebody that didn't want that was non-binary, and they wanted to be they and them, and you decided to go and gender them. And that's a whole thing. So, I mean, definitely, do your research, and toss your own discomforts out the window. I'm telling you right now, it's 2021. If you want to work, you're going to have to deal with clients that are not going to be your average client. I had a meeting with a client that wanted to marry themselves the other day. I mean, this is the world we live in. It was a birthday slash wedding. I know. I saw the look on your face. You're a lovely person. I'm not knocking. I'm just saying that this is what comes across your table. And as a professional, you can't make that face. You got to say, we're marrying yourself. Let's do it. Let's get you married. Let's do it then. And that's exactly how I handle all my clients. And I mean, everybody's, entitled to your own opinion and everything like that. But if you want to run a successful business, money spends the same regardless of who's handing you that money. So you have your boundaries, but get with the times. That's just the one advice I want to give everybody out there in terms of that. And also, with that being said, on a little tangent, but speaking of that, I make sure that if you have 2 grooms or 2 brides, that your paperwork says that. I am so sick of wedding planners sending me forms that are calling. I had recently, I have 2 grooms, and every planning form says bride and groom, everything. It even says mother of the bride, father. And like, why did you not take the time? And the client is cool about it. I don't know if the client said, they haven't said anything to me, but as the vendor, I'm uncomfortable. As an LGBT vendor, I'm uncomfortable, because I was like, if that was my wedding, I'd be kind of frustrated, because now you're confusing them, because somebody might not know better, and they might honestly think that this person, I'm just making up a name, that this person Steven might want to be a bride because they don't know about LGBT. So now they're calling Steven a bride, and bride's like, Steven's like, I'm not a bride, I'm a groom. What are you talking about? Bottom line is ask. Ask everything.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. And I reached out to you about that, and I felt like a little silly about it, but I know there's no dumb questions, and I feel comfortable talking to you about it because I do have in contract my first 2 lesbian weddings. And I'm like, so is it any different? And this topic came up in a big DJ group on Facebook this week, and people were like, it's no different. It's people, and it's just people, And I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, that's pretty general statement. And so I'm so glad we are talking about this. I did want to talk about it in our interview today. So that's a good point, just in the paperwork, bride
Well,
and
and they are
bride.
people. And I'm not saying that they're not. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right to say that people, they are people. Love is love. I'm not knocking it. I'm saying a wedding is a wedding. I don't even like to call them gay weddings. I call them weddings. A wedding is a wedding.
Yeah.
But with that being said, you have to understand that weddings involve individuals, and not every individual is the same. So sure, they're people. Sure, it's a wedding. But what Bob and Sandra want is different than what, Scott and Tommy might want, And so you have to ask. Or if you want, let's take the gay thing out of it. If you have 2 straight couples, somebody might want alternative rock, whereas the other wants nothing but 90s hip hop. Exact same for a gay wedding. Why are we, not asking those questions? Like, it's the same as asking the questions. You're just making sure that the wedding goes exactly as the couple wants, And so really, I mean, that's what it is. So it's more, it goes so much deeper than people are people, because that's where people make the mistakes. They expect, oh, you're just people. And then they want to label you and make it something, but it's not. You're dealing with an event where they're so new that the clientele can do anything they want, because we're creating our own traditions in the LGBT community. You know what I mean? Like, we don't necessarily have to walk down the aisle the way, everybody. We don't have to have that flower girl before, the bride or the groom comes down. Like, we can all walk with our parents. We can do whatever. So anyway, bottom line, I'm going on a tangent, but ask.
Yeah, no, what's cool is like, okay, so every event's super unique. Every client's super unique. So don't be afraid to get intimate with your client and get to know them. And there are those basics. Okay, well, what music do you want? We're DJs. Our main job is to provide the music, keep people dancing. But then it gets into those finer details. It's like, do they want to be announced? Do they have a grand entrance? How do they want to be announced? So it's like, a lot of similar basic things.
All the
But
same. Right?
yeah, so but I like that tip on the paperwork, how you write it in your contract. If it says bride and they want to be bride or bridegroom, so I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mean to cut you. I only have a few minutes left. I had an 11, but I'm running it late, but I just wanted to let you know. And I'm more than happy to interview you later and extend this conversation because that's a really important topic, but I just want to
Yeah.
give you the rundown with the timing.
You have to go right now.
In like 2 minutes, I want to
Okay.
talk for a little
Okay.
bit.
So any final thoughts? Like what was the biggest takeaway from this last year when our industry was shut down?
Sure. So the biggest takeaway is that if you work hard enough and you really, really want something, you can achieve it, even when you feel like everything you've worked for is about to get yanked underneath you. When the pandemic started, I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't know if I'm ever going to be a DJ again. Do I have to, have a day job? Am I going to be working in an office? What am I delivering Amazon? Like, I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like all these crazy thoughts popped into my head. And then it wasn't until I really sat down and I buckled in and I said, you know what, I have to figure out a way to make this work. So I realized that somebody reached out to me about, oh, maybe you can provide music for the Zoom meeting. That'd be cool. And so then I realized, I'm like, oh, wait, actually that could totally be a thing. And that just dove into me doing the research and figuring out the best way to make, the audio sound great and to really just how I could make it a really fun party. And I figured out a way to, take my private event skills and transition it into the virtual world to where I make people planning virtual parties feel a lot more comfortable about the virtual parties because I have that event expertise. But with that being said, me pivot, I know people hate the word pivot, but it was a total pivot into virtual events, helped me maintain through the pandemic. And now what I'm finding post-pandemic, when things are slowly opening back up, I am now booking both live events and virtual events. So I've now doubled my income because of that, so that was a great bonus.
Yay, I love it. Yeah, you definitely, I've been watching you. You've been doing amazing with it. I love it. I don't think it's going away. I think it's a great way to, like you said, double your income. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to one day meeting.
Hopefully we will. Are you going to Wedding MBA or anything this year?
No, but I will be at Mobile Entertainment Expo in February.
I have tickets to that, so hopefully we'll see each other there.
Okay, awesome. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Bye.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Go to my website to claim your free gift, a digital copy of my best-selling book, How to Start a DJ Business. www.djrundat.com. Follow me on all social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at DJ RunDat. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. To learn how you can book me or work with me, go to my website or email me at michelle@djrundat.com.